Welcome to Coming Home, helping you survive and thrive in your homeschooling. What is the Charlotte Mason approach to homeschooling? Charlotte Mason was an educationalist in the early 20th century. She was born in Wales, Great Britain, and as an education reformer, believed in and created a liberal and wide curriculum. She is known for introducing the living or whole book philosophy as a primary means of education. The teaching method is thorough, rigorous, and yet a gentle way to oversee the education of your children. If you want to read about Charlotte Mason, find copies of her writings. You can also read those who have written about her, but these are always the writer's interpretation of Miss Mason and secondary to learning more of her philosophy. Since the Charlotte Mason approach emphasizes reading the original and unabridged text over a modernized and abridged version, this seems to be the most helpful and direct way to go about understanding her teachings. She wrote her books 100 years ago, in a completely different time and place. Therefore, it is prudent to remember to seek and understand her philosophy and apply it to our modern times without either dumbing it down or adhering to it literally. Simply because she wrote it a long time ago doesn't justify deeming it as irrelevant to us today. We would be in a sorry state indeed if we discarded written material before our modern times. In the Charlotte Mason community, excellent books are commonly referred to as living or whole books, both classic and modern. Using these books as the backbone for her school, the philosophy and practice became popular with homeschooling families in modern times. Adding a maths text, availing oneself of natural surroundings, art studies, and cultural events local to you or online, a rich curriculum presents itself to deeply educate your child in an enjoyable way. There are still things to be studied and learned because they must be, but so much of her approach makes schoolwork seem so achievable it feels like cheating. At least that's how it felt for me. This approach suits parents who want to plan a curriculum armed with guidelines, book lists, and mentors, designing what they want and to suit a child's learning style. For the parent who prefers to be told what to do each day and which pages to work by, there is also prepared Charlotte Mason curricula to buy. The former gives you total freedom to plan around your child's learning needs and to stop, start, and pivot according to life. The latter can also do this, provided you take charge of the content and not allow it to dictate when you need to have some temporary flexibility. Whether you do it yourself or buy it ready-made, I love this philosophy of education. If I was to start our homeschooling adventure all over again, I would still choose it. Apart from our first year of buying a boxed curriculum, Charlotte Mason was the approach we chose and settled into more and more as the years went by. It served us well. The Charlotte Mason approach uses maths books, logic, literature books of all sorts, often at the same time, poetry, history, the sciences, languages, art and artists, musicians, and takes advantage of the cultural activities going on in your neighbourhood or travelling to see it. Often several of these subjects are included in the same book or activity. If a child has not only enjoyed a book, but has been challenged and grown in knowledge of the world via its pages, she is much more likely to absorb and remember it, instead of something learned because it was what she had to do. Think back over your school years. It was the subject, theme, or even the teacher which embedded a knowledge in you. Some things I learned have a negative memory attached, which is a shame, not just for the memory, but because I still see some things as too hard to try or I'm too dumb to learn it. Neither of these are true, and make it harder than it should be to undo these parts of my character. To have a child love what he's reading is the easiest and most guaranteed way to instill an excellent education and grow a worthy character in him. Reading classic literature stretches the reader's boundaries in vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation, phrasing, etc., constantly building and strengthening a firm foundation in education from which much can be built on during their life. Authors such as Jane Austen, C.S. Lewis, Shakespeare, Dickens, Laura Ingalls Wilder, L.M. Montgomery, to mention only a few. As an interesting aside, I learnt C.S. Lewis read Pride and Prejudice each year because of the character lessons written into the plot. Being immersed myself to a regular diet of classical literature and culture has grown my knowledge in a way that I did not expect when we first decided to bring our children home. School is for children. I left school at the end of the sixth form, or year 12, and that was that. How wrong I was, and how lucky I have been for how educating our children at home has enriched me. If a child has a natural interest in, let's say, birds or trees, you can steer her to books which include these and were written by someone who also enjoyed and cared about the subject enough to write about it. Not only are you reading about birds, but also learning their anatomy, the science of flight, and thus basic physics has now been introduced, life cycles, the flora and fauna necessary to them, where and how they live and what they eat. From here you can jump into art, because she will want to draw what she loves. There is music written with birds in mind, I'm thinking of Vivaldi. Geography, conservation, writing, both fiction and non-fiction, and spelling. She will be learning how to follow the evidence, because observing the feathers found and the style of a nest leads to a conclusion. And goodness knows, we need people who know how to follow the evidence and not just believe what they're told. All from giving her a pile of books about or including birds or trees or whatever it is she's already interested in. The only textbook we used was a maths book. Even science textbooks were not introduced until late high school years. Our children did not use fill-in-the-blanks, workbooks or sheets. We avoided using preset questions after reading or listening to literature or visiting a gallery, etc., preferring the narration or tell me about it method. A child just out of school may not be used to self-directed narration or telling, being accustomed to being given questions to answer, but he can learn how by giving him some hint questions such as, tell me about how the kiwi found his food. Do this only if your child has not given sufficient narration, isn't used to it, or is just being belligerent. Once he knows he can, he will tell you all sorts of things which were important to him, even if you didn't notice it during the reading. For instance, he may tell you with great care how a threatened kiwi can kick with surprising strength, but not the different colours found amongst kiwi types. That's okay. Let him tell you all about the kicking. The colours can wait another day. If he's old enough, he can write about it. Otherwise, you write it for him verbatim. Do not change the wording even if it is grammatically incorrect. This is important because it is a record of where he is at right now. And it's awfully cute when you or he go back and read it years later. In our city, there is an annual Shakespeare in the park. We would familiarise ourselves with the play, including any cultural aspects, pack up a picnic basket, take cushions and blankets, and go to enjoy an amateur drama in a small outdoor amphitheatre. Even though our school days are well finished, our grown children still enjoy going to this event. We went to the ballet and opera. The boys didn't enjoy it, and we didn't make them go more than once, but it was necessary to experience it because they're an important part of our culture and history. Our girls went to more performances. We read about George Frederick Handel and went to the annual Christmas performance of Messiah. They stood during the Hallelujah chorus, understanding why we do this. History, tradition, music, all wrapped up in one event. And the ice cream at half-time, of course. One year we travelled to our capital city for an exhibition of Monet. In our hometown, we regularly went to our local art galleries, all kinds of dramas and musicals, heard visiting speakers and theologians. There were drama classes, art classes, short intensive chemistry and physics experiences and lessons at the local university laboratory. There were sports days and seasonal sport. We regularly went to our local beaches and other outdoor areas. Some of our children in their teens enrolled in the Duke of Edinburgh Award, which takes 4 years to complete. And we all participated in service opportunities in our community over the years. My favourite how-to book was Karen Andriola's Charlotte Mason Companion, as well as the original Charlotte Mason series. In later years, I valued A Thomas Jefferson Education by Oliver Vandermeer. I have included affiliate links in the description area for books I recommend. There's also a link to Charlotte Mason curricula where all the hard work is done for you. This wasn't available when we were homeschooling, and it looks like a good option to me. This has been an overview of a Charlotte Mason approach to educating your children. To learn more, read some of the suggested books and Charlotte Mason herself, and send me questions. I am happy to do a deep dive on specific queries. So until next time, enjoy your children.